Pirata de Culiacan was a 17-year-old social media star with over 1 million followers before he was gunned down in a bar in Jalisco, Mexico. But what he did to get killed wasn't selling drugs or snitching. It was 10 seconds of him drunk on camera, insulting one of the most dangerous men in Mexico. Let's take a look at the life and final 24 hours of El Pirata de Culiacan. El Pirata de Culiacan is a Mexican social media influencer from Sinaloa, best known for his drunk party videos and for being executed at 17 years old after disrespecting a cartel boss. He was born Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales on April 28, 2000, in Villa Juarez, Navolato, which is in the state of Sinaloa. His childhood was rough from the jump. He never knew his father. His mom abandoned him when he was young, leaving him in the care of his grandmother. That's who raised him. No parents, no real support system, just his abuela trying to keep him out of trouble. Growing up in Navolato, Juan Luis was surrounded by poverty and the narco lifestyle. This is Sinaloa we talking about, the birthplace of the Sinaloa cartel where El Chapo came from. The local heroes in these areas ain't teachers or doctors. They the guys with the most guns and the biggest trucks. That's the reality when you grow up in cartel territory. You either stay broke and invisible, or you find a way to get noticed. By the time Juan Luis was 14, he dropped out of high school in 5th grade. He wasn't interested in school. He wanted money, he wanted respect, and he wanted out of poverty. At 15, he ran away from his grandmother's house and moved to nearby Culiacan to start earning. His first job? Washing cars. That's how he survived. Washing cars on the street for whatever money people would give him. But Juan Luis had a personality that was too big for car washes. He was loud, he was funny, and he loved attention. Around 2015, when he was about 15 years old, he started posting videos on Facebook. Not music videos or skits, just him drinking, heavy drinking. Despite being underage, he'd post videos of himself chugging entire bottles of vodka and whiskey until he'd literally pass out on camera. The first video that went viral happened in the summer of 2015. It showed him drinking a full bottle of vodka in one go, then falling over unconscious. People thought it was hilarious. His baby face made it even crazier. He looked like he was 12 years old, but he was drinking like a grown alcoholic. The video blew up. Suddenly people knew who he was. That's when he gave himself the nickname El Pirata de Culiacan, the Pirate of Culiacan. He started building his whole brand around this drunk, reckless persona. Every video was the same formula. Drink till you can't stand, do something stupid, post it, go viral. And it worked. Within a year, he had hundreds of thousands of followers. By 2017, he had over 1 million followers on Facebook, 300,000 on Instagram, and 30,000 on Twitter. But El Pirata wanted to look older, more legit. So he started getting tattoos all over his body. He'd draw a beard on his face with makeup to look like he had facial hair. He started posting pictures with guns, high-powered assault rifles. He'd post photos with expensive cars, wads of cash, and half-naked women around him. He was living the narco dream on social media, even though most of it was probably fake or borrowed just for the photo. The crazy part is, it worked. Norteño music bands started reaching out to him. Groups like Código FN, Enigma Norteño, Larry Hernandez, Los Nuevos Rebeldes, and Titanes de Durango all asked him to appear in their music videos. They knew he had a huge following, and having him in the video would bring views. El Pirata was becoming a real influencer in the narco cultura scene. So in a matter of 2 years, El Pirata went from washing cars in Culiacan to being featured in music videos with major Norteño artists. He was getting invited to bars and clubs all over Mexico. Promoters wanted him there because his presence brought crowds. He was a social media celebrity. For a kid who grew up with nothing, this was everything. But there was a dark side to all this. El Pirata was an alcoholic. On a radio interview with Pepe Garza, he admitted that people would ask him, "How do you do it? How do you handle drinking so much?" He said, "I just laugh. I say I don't know how I do it." Then he added, "But they're right. Sometimes I go too far." He knew he had a problem, but the problem was also his brand. Without the drinking, without the recklessness, he was just another poor kid from Sinaloa. The alcohol made him famous. So he kept going. In the summer of 2017, El Pirata got arrested in Tijuana. He was found drunk inside a nightclub called Las Pulgas. Authorities had to take him in because he was that out of control. But even that didn't slow him down. He kept partying, kept posting, kept pushing limits. His content was getting more controversial too. He wasn't just drinking anymore. He was posting videos where he'd criticize people, talk reckless, say whatever came to his drunk mind. He had this thing where he'd end his videos with the phrase, "That's how it was," like he was telling real street stories. His followers loved it. They thought he was fearless. But El Pirata wasn't just fearless. He was careless. And in Mexico, especially in cartel-controlled areas, being careless can get you killed. At some point in late 2017, just days before his death, El Pirata posted a video that would change everything. He was drunk, like usual. He was surrounded by friends. And in the video, he looked directly at the camera and said something that made everyone watching go silent. El Mencho a mí me pela la verga. In English, that translates to El Mencho can suck my dick, or El Mencho means nothing to me. He said it with a smile, like it was a joke. But it wasn't a joke. El Mencho, real name Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, was the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, known as CJNG. At the time, he was one of the most wanted men in Mexico and the United States. The DEA had a $10 million reward for information lead-in to his capture. This wasn't some mid-level dealer. This was one of the most powerful and violent drug lords in the world. El Mencho didn't just run a cartel, he built an empire. CJNG controlled drug routes across Mexico and into the United States. They trafficked cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl. They also ran extortion rackets, human trafficking operations, and fuel theft rings. Under El Mencho's command, CJNG became known for extreme violence, public executions, mass killings, and direct attacks on Mexican security forces. But what made El Mencho especially dangerous was how he controlled his image. He actively monitored social media. If someone posted something disrespectful about him or CJNG, they didn't just get a warning, they got killed. El Mencho used social media as a weapon. His sicarios would post execution videos online to terrorize the public. They had professional branding, printed narco messages on banners, and a whole propaganda operation to control the narrative. In Mexico, even journalists who write unfavorable articles about cartels get murdered. Entire newspapers have been shut down because reporters were too scared to cover cartel violence. So for a 17-year-old drunk kid to publicly insult the leader of CJNG on social media, that was suicide. In the video, you can actually see someone next to El Pirata trying to stop him. They knew how dangerous this was. But El Pirata didn't care. He said it anyway, laughed, and posted the video. Within hours, the video went viral. It spread across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. People were sharing it, commenting on it, turning it into memes. Some people thought it was hilarious. Others were horrified. In the comment sections, people were warning him, "You just signed your death warrant. Delete this before it's too late. R.I.P. Pirata, you bout to die." But El Pirata didn't delete it. Maybe he thought his 1,000,000 followers would protect him. Maybe he thought he was untouchable because he was famous. Or maybe he was just too drunk to understand what he'd done. El Mencho saw the video, and according to reports, he gave the order almost immediately. December 18th, 2017, Monday. This was El Pirata's last day alive. That morning, he woke up like any other day. He was still in Jalisco, the home state of CJNG. He'd been partying in the Guadalajara area for a few days, hitting up different bars and clubs. For El Pirata, this was normal. Go to a spot, drink, take videos, post on social media, repeat. At some point during the day, he made a decision that would seal his fate. He posted on his social media inviting people to come party with him that night at a bar called Mencho 2 Canteros in Zapopan. He posted the exact location. He told everyone where he'd be and when. This is something influencers do all the time. They share their location so fans can meet up with them. But El Pirata forgot something important. His fans knew where he was, but so did his enemies. By the time evening rolled around, El Pirata and his crew pulled up to Mencho 2 Canteros. It was a bar on Calle Colon, near the junction with Las Torres Street, in the Zapopan municipality. Music was playing, people were drinking, and El Pirata was in his element, taking videos, laughing, being the center of attention. He sat down at a table with his friends. There was a woman sitting with him, drinking. The bar manager was around. Everything seemed normal. Just another night of partying for El Pirata de Culiacan. What he didn't know was that a team of sicarios was already on the way. Around 11 p.m., a black truck pulled up outside the bar. 4 to 5 armed men got out. They were carrying long guns, rifles. They weren't there to rob the place. They weren't there for money. They were there for one person. The gunmen walked into Mencho 2 Canteros. They didn't say nothing to the crowd. They didn't announce themselves. They went straight for El Pirata's table. And then they opened fire. 15 to 18 bullets. That's how many times they shot him. Some reports say he was sitting at the table when they lit him up. Others say he tried to run and they caught him outside. Either way, the result was the same. El Pirata de Culiacan died instantly. His body was riddled with bullets. Witnesses said he was unrecognizable. One photo that leaked from the scene showed him clutching his phone in one hand and a shoulder bag in the other. Even in death, he was still holding onto the tools of his trade, the thing that made him famous. The woman who was drinking with him got shot too, but she survived. She was rushed to a private hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The bar manager was also hit and ended up in serious condition, but the gunmen didn't care about them. They came for El Pirata, and once he was dead, they left. The whole thing took less than a minute. The sicarios jumped back in the black truck and drove off into the night. No one chased them. No one stopped them. This is Jalisco, CJNG territory. The police don't move unless the cartel lets them. By the time authorities arrived at Mencho 2 Canteros, El Pirata was already gone. The crime scene was chaos. Blood everywhere. Shell casings on the ground. Witnesses too scared to talk. The Jalisco State Prosecutor's Office opened an investigation. The Attorney General, Raul Sanchez Jimenez, confirmed that an armed commando had burst into the bar and executed Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales. But when reporters asked if there was a connection to the video where El Pirata insulted El Mencho, authorities said they couldn't find any evidence linking the murder to drug cartels. That statement was laughable. Everyone knew what happened. The Mexican government just didn't want to admit it. Either they were protecting the cartel, or they didn't want to provoke CJNG into more violence. In Mexico, the cartels have so much power that even the government has to be careful about what they say publicly. Later, investigators identified some suspects. The main suspect was a guy known as Double R, who allegedly led the hit squad. Another suspect, Emilio Alexandro Pinedo, alias El Sobrino, was arrested in 2018 in Zapopan. Journalist Hector de Mauleon reported that El Sobrino was connected to the murder, but despite these leads, no one was ever convicted. The case remains technically open, but everyone knows it's never going to be solved. The truth is, this wasn't a mystery, it was an execution. El Mencho ordered the hit, his sicarios carried it out, and the message was sent. Disrespect CJNG and you die. It don't matter if you got 1 million followers. It don't matter if you're just a kid. You cross the line, you pay the price. El Pirata's death wasn't just about one drunk teenager making a mistake. It was a demonstration of cartel power in the age of social media. El Mencho and CJNG weren't just drug traffickers. They were a brand. They had a whole media operation, professional videos, printed banners with their logo, propaganda campaigns. They understood that in the modern world, perception is power. If people feared them, they didn't need to fight as many wars. The fear did the work for them. That's why El Mencho monitored social media so closely. He couldn't let disrespect slide, especially not public disrespect that went viral. If he let a 17-year-old kid insult him on camera and get away with it, he'd look weak. Other people might start thinking they could disrespect him too. So he had to make an example. And that's exactly what El Pirata became, an example. After his death, his story spread across Mexico and beyond. It became a warning to other young influencers. Don't play with the cartels. Your followers can't protect you. Your viral videos can't save you. In the real world, outside the comment sections, the cartels run things. Univision reporter Fernando Mexia wrote an article called "The Poisoned Fame of El Pirata." In it, he said he opted to make a career as a broken toy of cyberspace, a path he carved out drink by drink, and that left him with enemies of flesh and blood. That quote captures the tragedy of El Pirata's life. He thought social media fame was real power. He thought being an influencer made him untouchable. But in cartel territory, online clout means nothing. The only power that matters is the power to take a life. El Pirata de Culiacan's death was a huge loss to his family and his fans. Even though he was going through a lot, the alcoholism, the reckless behavior, the dangerous content, he was still just a kid. He was 17 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. Some people saw potential in him. Music producers said he could have become a real artist if he cleaned up his act. Others thought he could have used his platform for something positive. But all of that potential died on the floor of a bar in Zapopan. What could have been? That's the question people ask. If El Pirata had never posted that video, would he still be alive? Probably. If he'd apologized, deleted the video, disappeared for a while, could he have survived? Maybe. But he didn't do any of that. He kept partying, kept posting his location, kept acting like the rules didn't apply to him. In a weird way, El Pirata's death also revealed something about social media culture. We live in a world where clout is currency, where going viral matters more than staying safe, where young people will do anything, drink till they pass out, insult drug lords, risk their lives, just to get views and followers. El Pirata's friend, Beto Sierra, an Instagram star who knew him well, posted a tribute after his death. He said El Pirata was cheerful and that he'd encouraged him to drink less. Sierra wrote, "He told me that he wanted to change. But on the weekend, there's no lack of bad influences. You were living a fast life, you never listened, and I don't judge you. Those who knew you know you were a good person. That's the tragedy. Deep down, people who knew El Pirata said he was a good kid. He was funny, he was loyal to his friends, and he had dreams of becoming a singer. But he was also trapped by poverty, trapped by his addiction, trapped by the persona he created online. And in the end, that persona got him killed. Unfortunately, fans will probably never know exactly why El Pirata thought it was a good idea to insult El Mencho. It could have been the alcohol. He was known for getting blackout drunk and not remembering what he did. It could have been ignorance. Maybe he genuinely didn't understand how dangerous El Mencho was. It could have been arrogance. Maybe he thought his social media fame made him immune. Or it could have been a combination of all three. What we do know is that in the narco world, there are rules. You don't snitch, you don't steal from the cartel, and you definitely don't publicly disrespect a cartel boss. El Pirata broke that third rule, and he paid for it with his life. Fast forward to February 22nd, 2026, almost 9 years after El Pirata's death. The Mexican military, with help from U.S. intelligence, finally tracked down El Mencho to a hideout in Tapalpa, Jalisco. They launched a pre-dawn raid. Gunfire erupted. Several CJNG sicarios were killed. El Mencho was shot multiple times. He was airlifted to a hospital, but he died during the flight to Mexico City. The death of El Mencho, one of the most wanted men in the world, triggered a wave of violence across Mexico. CJNG members blocked roads in 20 states, set vehicles on fire, attacked police convoys. At least 25 National Guard troops were killed in retaliation. It was chaos. But something else happened too. On social media, El Pirata de Culiacán started trending. People posted memes about how El Pirata was finally avenged. They joked that El Pirata and El Mencho had met in heaven. Phrases like por fin vengado, finally avenged, spread across Twitter and Instagram. There's this whole meme culture around El Pirata now. Whenever a famous person dies, people joke that El Pirata is taking them to the afterlife. They post old pictures of him with captions like he takes everyone eventually. It's dark humor, but it shows that El Pirata's story is still remembered. He became a symbol, not of success, but of the dangers of social media fame in cartel-controlled Mexico. His death is still a cautionary tale. It's taught in digital media classes in Mexico as an example of what not to do. Parents show their kids his story as a warning about the consequences of trying to be an influencer in narco territory. And young people in Sinaloa, Jalisco, and other cartel-controlled states know his name, not because of his videos, but because of how he died. It's a tragic situation that seems to continue to happen. Another young person with a lot of potential and charisma that could have taken him far, but once again was taken too soon. El Pirata de Culiacán was a product of his environment. He grew up in poverty, abandoned by his parents, surrounded by narco culture. He found a way out through social media, drinking on camera, acting reckless, building a following. For 2 years, it worked. He went from washing cars to being a celebrity. He appeared in music videos. He got invited to clubs. He made money. He felt important. But the same culture that made him famous also killed him. In narco-controlled Mexico, you can't just say whatever you want. You can't insult cartel bosses and think your followers will protect you. The cartels don't care about your social media presence. They care about respect. And when you disrespect them, they respond the only way they know how, with violence. El Pirata thought he was untouchable. He thought being an influencer made him special. But in the end, he was just another statistic. Just another young person killed by the narco violence that plagues Mexico. At least he left behind a legacy, not of music or art, but of warning. His story is a reminder that online fame is not real power. That clout can't stop bullets. And that in some parts of the world, words can get you killed. The night El Pirata died, he was holding his phone. The tool that made him famous. The tool that allowed him to insult one of the most dangerous men in Mexico. And in the end, the tool that led the sicarios right to him. R.I.P. Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales, El Pirata de Culiacán. Gone at 17, but not forgotten. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know what you think. Was El Pirata just a kid who made a mistake, or did he know what he was doing? And subscribe if you want more deep dives into stories like this.